Hey guys, how's it going? So, for this episode, we're going to look at One Piece Chapter 3. Now, we open up this chapter with a not so interesting cover art this week, it seems. We got this polka dot fish shark looking animal, and Luffy's riding it like a horse. This one doesn't really capture me as much. I mean, don't get me wrong, like the thrashing around in the water, like the water effects moving side to side viciously and sporadically. You can see it in the waves. That's cool. But other than that, this cover art doesn't really do it for me as much as the last two. Now, we get our introduction to the next island that Luffy travels to, along with Koby. It's an island known for its naval base. Now, I'm going to assume that's because of the uniqueness of the naval base's architecture compared to the rest of the island. The rest of the island looks very, very vanilla, very normal, while we have like a giant drum looking structure for the naval base itself. Kind of reminds me of Drum Island that we'll encounter in the future, but we'll get to that when we get there. Now, Luffy and Koby walk in, of course, to a restaurant because Luffy's always looking to get some food, much like myself whenever I go somewhere new. And my favorite part about this restaurant is probably the comical nature of all the patrons. They continuously freak out over any mention of this Roronoa Zoro character or even the Captain Morgan character that we'll soon meet both of them, I would assume. But every time either one of them mentions either of these names, all the patrons just completely flip out and go crazy out of fear. It's just hilarious that Oda decided to slip in the Elvis impersonator in the background here. Of course, Luffy always heads right into danger, and this will be an ongoing theme, as you'll come to find out. But he walks up to the naval base, knowing full well that he's a pirate, but luckily no one knows of him yet. He's too small time, so to speak. He doesn't have a bounty on his head yet or anything. No one really knows of him yet around the East Blue, at least. But I just wanted to mention the continuity and the consistency of Oda's bricks in this wall here. This kind of brought up to mind an issue that I have. I might have to look into this a little bit. I noticed that Oda's consistency of the bricks here on this wall are super nice and straight. My bricks, like my walls, my consistency for perspective on what's supposed to be consistent brick walls per se, or something similar, like siding of a house. It's never that good. You would think it'd be pretty simple, but I mean, I don't even own a ruler to use. Maybe that would help, but it kind of feels like cheating. But maybe that's what just everyone uses. Maybe no one really cares about using a ruler to create consistency in wall design. But I just thought it was interesting to mention. Now, we're introduced to Zoro's character here, and in his introduction, we have quite the contrast. When Luffy and Koby peek over the wall, they see Zoro, and Zoro's just straight aura farming. He just looks wicked badass, wicked cool, and like he could be quite the threat. But he's tied up to a wooden post in a naval base, so despite being tied up, he still looks quite dangerous. But this is immediately contrasted once a little girl puts up a ladder up against the wall to climb over and feed this Roronoa Zoro. Zoro tries to scare her off and threaten her to get out of the naval base, and this is for a good reason. Zoro knows that anyone that tries to feed him will face the consequences that he is facing for whatever crime he committed. That's the rule that this naval base seems to have. And so he's trying to scare this girl off. A Navy official comes over and basically grabs the food that she made for Zoro and stomps it out in the ground and tells her to get lost and has a Marine throw her over the wall, a little girl. Luffy catches her without so much as a word. Mind you, Luffy and Koby witness this whole thing. And Luffy, intrigued from this interaction, decides to go in and talk to Zoro and kind of loosely imply that he should join their crew and offer assistance in getting him out of there. in a way. Zoro rightly assumes that it'll mean that he would have to join or should join Luffy's crew. And Zoro refuses, thinking that the Navy will hold up their end of the bargain that they struck with him. One thing that I noticed in this Zoro introduction, and this is kind of a small thing, but I noticed that Oda's wood textures kind of look somewhat similar to mine in one of my drawings. And it's nice to see. It's a little bit reassuring. I might be figuring some things here and there. I mean, obviously I have a long way to go compared to him even at this point, but still, it's reassuring to know that I might be on the right track with something for once. Anyways, Zoro ends up having Luffy feed him the food that was stomped out on the ground that the girl made for him. And this tells Luffy a lot about Zoro's character. And at this point, I mean, Luffy's pretty much made it up in his mind that he's going to get Zoro to join his crew. But he lets it be for the time being. At this point, at Chapter 3, we can safely see here that Oda has a theme going on. He has a reoccurring instance of having something of like an emotional hook, almost like a pain point when providing like a service to someone where you're trying to like solve an issue or create a resolution. But it's more of like he has an emotional climax to every chapter, it seems. Say when Shanks defends Luffy instead of himself to teach an important lesson, or maybe when Shanks gives Luffy his hat, or maybe even in Chapter 2 when Koby stands up to Alvida. These moments of climax play on our emotions and reach a sort of resolution afterwards, where even in the individual chapters, there's a classical story narrative in every iteration of the story so far, basically every chapter. I think this is something to take note of, and I think it's quite a good literary tool. My favorite panel in this chapter would probably have to be something you probably wouldn't guess. I'd say it would be this panel right here of Zoro tied up to the wooden post, but it's got a close-up of him, and you can see a lot of shading and hatching going on. I really enjoy the hatching going on with the shade of his head compared to the shading of his do-rag there. And I do enjoy the perspective with his arm around the post as well, with the close-up nonetheless. Sometimes it can be hard to do perspective with such a close shot of a character, I would say. But anyways, that's all I've got for this video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of this chapter. And like I said, thank you for watching. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one.